Untouched for 20 years, her desire finally breaks free. First contact. The skies of Lemuria wept silver tears as Nira Zhen adjusted her atmospheric suit and checked her sample case for the third time. The research outpost had warned about the unpredictable weather patterns, but nothing prepared her for the beauty of precipitation that seemed to glow from within. Base, this is Shen. Moving to Sector 7 to collect samples before the storm intensifies, she reported, her voice steady despite the excitement coursing through her veins. 6 years of specialized training in xenobotany had finally brought her to this frontier planet, rumored to host the most diverse bioluminescent flora in the charted galaxy. The mist thickened around her, transforming the violet-tinged landscape into a dreamscape of shifting shadows. Her enhanced perception implants, a modification she'd undergone specifically for this mission, allowed her to detect subtle light variations invisible to standard human vision. Something pulsed in the distance, a rhythm unlike the documented plant life she'd studied. Curiosity pulled her forward until the mouth of a cave appeared, its entrance partially concealed by hanging vines that emitted a gentle azure glow. The storm intensified, making her decision easy. Shelter now, exploration later. Base, this is Shen. I'm taking shelter in a cave formation. Coordinates uploading now. She called, but only static answered. The storm must have interfered with communications. Nira switched on her suit's illumination and stepped deeper into the cave. The first sign that she wasn't alone came as a shift in air pressure, followed by a sound too deliberate to be natural. Nira froze, her hand moving instinctively to the small protection device at her belt. "Who's there?" she called, sweeping her light across the cave's interior. The figure that emerged from the shadows moved with a primal grace that seemed both human and something else entirely. A man, clearly human in form, but with eyes that reflected her light like a nocturnal animal's, regarded her with equal parts fear and fascination. "You're real," he began, his voice cracking from disuse. "Real?" His appearance startled her, tall and lean with wild hair that fell past his shoulders. Clothing made of local materials covered his frame, and markings that resembled the cave's natural patterns adorned his exposed skin. "I'm Nira Zhen, xenobotanist from Earth Coalition," she said softly, lowering her light. "And yes, I'm quite real." The man approached cautiously, like someone who had forgotten how to interact with another being. "Talon Vex," he whispered, the name sounding strange on his own lips. "Geological Survey Team. 15 years, I think. 15 years alone." The realization hit her like physical pressure. The Lemurian geological expeditions were legendary for their failures. Most had been lost to the planet's mysteries. "You survived," she said, a statement rather than a question. His lips curved into what might have been a smile in another lifetime. "Did I?" He reached toward her, fingers trembling before he pulled back. "Sometimes I think Lemuria dreams me, and now it dreams you too." Human, but changed by isolation and the strange energies of this world. As lightning flashed outside, illuminating the cave in pulses, Nira saw the loneliness in his eyes, a man who had forgotten what another's touch felt like. "I'm no dream," she promised, "and if you'll allow it, I'll return tomorrow." The storm raged outside, but in that cave, something long dormant in Talon Vex began to awaken.
Trust in shadows. The research outpost's common area fell silent as Naira packed supplies into her field bag. 3 days had passed since her encounter with the lost expeditioner, and curiosity had evolved into something deeper, a sense of purpose. "That's a lot of rations for botanical sampling," Dr. Reeves observed, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. Naira continued packing. "Long-range expedition today. The Western Canyons show promising spectral signatures." It wasn't entirely a lie. The canyons did show interesting readings, but they weren't her primary destination. She slipped an old-fashioned paper journal into her bag as an afterthought. Something told her Talon might appreciate the tactile connection to recording thoughts after years of isolation. The journey to the cave took nearly 2 hours through Lemuria's shifting landscape. The planet seemed to rearrange itself daily, paths appearing and disappearing like thoughts in a dreaming mind. Only her enhanced perception implants, allowed her to track the subtle energy signatures that led back to him. Talon was waiting at the cave entrance this time, his posture tense but expectant. His eyes widened at her approach. "You returned," he said, wonder coloring his voice. "I convinced myself you were a hallucination. Here." She offered the ration pack first. "Real food, not the native plants you've been subsisting on." Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and Talon flinched as though shocked. "Sorry," he murmured. "It's been difficult, sensing too much, feeling too much." "The isolation?" Naira asked, settling onto a flat rock. "Lumeria," Talon gestured to the cave walls, where faint luminescent patterns pulsed in rhythm. "The longer I stayed, the more I began to feel the planet. Its energies, its patterns. At first I thought I was losing my mind." Naira leaned forward. "Show me." Hesitantly, Talon placed his palm against the cave wall. The patterns around his hand intensified, swirling in complex formations that mirrored his breathing. "The planet's energy fields respond to me now. I've become a conduit of sorts." "That's incredible," Naira whispered. Her scientific mind raced with possibilities. No recorded human had ever developed such synergy with Lumeria's unique electromagnetic fields. Talon smiled faintly. "It saved my life, but made me forget what being human felt like." His expression darkened. "When you're near, the energies, they intensify. It's overwhelming. In a bad way. In an unfamiliar way." His gaze met hers. "Like remembering thirst after forgetting what water tastes like." Over the next few hours, Naira shared news of Earth, technological advancements, and personal stories. Talon listened with ravenous attention, occasionally touching the journal she'd brought, as if to confirm its reality. "Why did you come back?" he finally asked as daylight began to fade. Naira considered the question. Protocol demanded she report his existence immediately. Another scientist might view him as a specimen to be studied. But something about his isolated vulnerability stirred a protective instinct in her. "Because everyone deserves connection," she said simply, "even on the edge of charted space." When she rose to leave, Talon walked her to the cave entrance. This time, when their hands accidentally brushed, he didn't pull away. Instead, he caught her fingers briefly, his touch gentle but electric. "The planet's energy flows differently when you're here," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Like it's been waiting for you, too." Naira felt the weight of his words, understanding that for a man who had been alone for 15 years, her presence was more than companionship. It was remembrance of what it meant to be human. "I'll return tomorrow," she promised, and stepped back into the mist-shrouded wilderness, feeling his gaze follow long after she disappeared from view.
Unexpected harmony. The crystal formations only appeared during Lumeria's third moon alignment, Talon explained, leading Naira through a narrow passage she would have missed without his guidance. 2 weeks of daily visits had smoothed the edges of his isolation, bringing forth glimpses of the geologist he had once been. "Your team never documented these?" Naira asked, carefully cataloging their path with her wrist device. Talon shook his head, his movements more fluid now, less guarded. "We never ventured this far. The energy signatures were too unpredictable." The passage opened into a vast underground chamber where crystalline structures rose from floor to ceiling, refracting light in impossible patterns. Naira gasped as her perception implants registered the intensity of energy flowing through the space. "It's like the planet's heartbeat," she whispered. "Yes." Talon moved closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. "This is where I first learned to connect with Lumeria's energy fields. I would come here when the loneliness became too much." Naira's instruments beeped urgently. "Energy surge incoming! Significant atmospheric disturbance!" Talon's expression shifted to concern. "An energy storm! We can't go back the way we came. The passage will be electrically charged. He pointed to a small alcove within the crystal chamber. There, we'll be shielded. They barely reached the alcove before the storm hit. The crystals throughout the chamber began to resonate, emitting harmonics that vibrated through Naira's body. The space was tight, forcing them to press together as energy crackled through the larger cavern. "Are you all right?" Talon asked, his voice close to her ear. "Yes, just—" Naira winced as a particularly strong pulse washed over them. "My implants are amplifying everything. It's intense." "Here." Talon hesitantly placed his hands on her temples. "I can help redirect the energy flow. Trust me?" Naira nodded and immediately felt a change as Talon's connection to the planet created a buffer between her and the storm's intensity. But something unexpected happened. Her enhanced perception merged with his planetary connection, creating a feedback loop of sensation that flowed between them like an electric current. "Oh," Talon breathed, his pupils dilating. "You feel it too." The boundary between them seemed to blur, her scientific knowledge melding with his intuitive understanding of Lumeria. Each breath synchronized, each heartbeat aligned with the pulsing crystal surrounding them. "Talon," she whispered, overwhelmed by the intimacy of their connected consciousness. His hands moved from his temples to cup her face with reverent gentleness. "For 15 years I've been alone in my connection to this planet, and now—" The kiss happened naturally, inevitably like gravity or tides. His lips were soft, despite the harshness of his environment, tentative at first, then hungry with years of forgotten desire. Naira responded with equal fervor, her hands finding their way into his hair, pulling him closer as the energy storm peaked around them. When they finally separated, Talon's eyes shimmered with an inner light that matched the crystals. "The energy doesn't overwhelm me when we're connected," he said wonderingly. "It's like you complete the circuit somehow." The storm gradually subsided, leaving them breathless in the aftermath of both natural phenomena and their own unexpected communion. Talon kept one hand intertwined with his as they navigated back through the now quiet passages. Neither spoke of what had transpired, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Scientist and survivor, observer and observed, now linked by something the sterile language of research reports could never capture.
Fractured serenity. The emergency alert pierced through Nira's quarters at dawn, its shrill tone matching the urgency in Commander Ellis's voice over the outpost communication system. "All personnel to briefing room immediately. Planetary destabilization has reached critical levels." Nira's heart sank as she hurried to the command center. The past month with Talon had created a bubble of discovery and connection that existed outside of mission parameters. Now reality was intruding with brutal efficiency. Holographic projections filled the briefing room, displaying Lumeria's increasingly erratic energy patterns. Commander Ellis didn't waste time with pleasantries. "The planet is experiencing unprecedented tectonic and electromagnetic disturbances. Evacuation protocols are now in effect. All research teams have 48 hours to secure essential samples and prepare for departure." Questions erupted from the assembled scientists, but Nira remained silent, her mind racing. Leaving meant abandoning Talon, or forcing him to return to a civilization he barely remembered. Worse, she suspected the truth about his connection to Lemuria might make leaving physically impossible for him. "Dr. Zhen," Ellis called as the briefing dispersed, "your work in the Western Territories has shown promising results. Prioritize your most valuable samples." Nira nodded mechanically, already calculating how quickly she could reach Talon's cave. The journey seemed interminable, each step weighted with dread. When she finally arrived, Talon was outside, his expression troubled as he stared at the violet sky where ominous energy patterns rippled like bruises. "You've heard," he said simply, not a question but a recognition of her distress. "The outpost is evacuating. 48 hours. The words felt like stones in my mouth. "Talon, you need to come with us." His smile was sad. "I can't. You can't stay here. The planet is destabilizing." "It's more complicated than that." Talon took my hand, guiding it to his chest. Beneath my palm, I felt an irregular rhythm that wasn't entirely human. "I need to show you something." Inside the cave, Talon removed his handcrafted shirt. Nira gasped at the network of luminescent patterns that traced his torso, identical to the energy signatures in the planet's crystal formations. "It began 5 years into my isolation," he explained quietly. "The energy fields didn't just connect with me, they merged with me. My heartbeat synchronizes with Lumeria's core pulses. My nervous system has adapted to channel its energies." His eyes met hers. "I'm not sure where Talon ends and Lumeria begins anymore." "That's why you feel overwhelmed when we're together," Nira realized. "My presence disrupts the patterns." "Yes, but in the most beautiful way." His fingers traced her cheek. "When we're connected, I feel balance between worlds." Nira's scientific mind raced through possibilities, theories forming and dissolving. "There must be a way to safely disconnect you, to help your system readjust to— If I leave, I might die," he interrupted gently. "And if the planet is truly destabilizing, my absence might accelerate the process. We've become symbiotic." The weight of impossible choices settled between them. Nira felt tears threatening. "I can't leave you here to die with the planet. And I can't ask you to stay and die with me." His voice broke. "Though part of me wants to." Their embrace was desperate, clinging to each other as the ground trembled slightly beneath them. When his lips found hers, the kiss carried the bitterness of pending separation and the sweetness of what might have been. Their bodies pressed together with urgent need, each touch an argument against the cruelty of their circumstances. Later, lying together on his simple bed of gathered materials, Talon traced patterns on her skin that matched those glowing on his own. "In another life, we would have had time," he whispered. Nira watched the luminescent lines on his chest pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. A radical idea began forming in her mind, something between science and intuition, as unorthodox as their connection. "What if there's a third option?" she said suddenly, sitting up. "What if instead of disconnecting you from Lumeria, or leaving you to its fate, we find a way to stabilize the connection, to use our unique bond to help both you and the planet?" Hope flickered in Talon's eyes, but caution tempered it. "How?" Nira's enhanced perception implants tingled as pieces fell into place. "Your connection to Lumeria intensifies when we're together, but in a controlled way. What if that's not interference? What if it's resonance? A harmonic that could potentially stabilize the planet's energy grid?" For the first time in 15 years, Talon allowed himself to imagine a future beyond his exile. It would be dangerous. Nira's smile was determined as she pressed her palm against the luminescent patterns on his chest. "So is leaving you behind."
Resonance. Dawn painted Lumeria's sky with fractal patterns of energy that had never been recorded in the planet's observation history. The outpost buzzed with frantic evacuation preparations as Nira slipped away, her pack laden with modified equipment salvaged from the research lab. Commander Ellis's voice echoed in her memory. "Any personnel not at the transport vessels by 0800 tomorrow will be considered lost." 24 hours to attempt the impossible. Talon waited at the entrance to the crystal chamber, his skin glowing more intensely than she had ever seen, the planet's increasing instability reflected in his own physiology. "The resonance is strongest here," he explained, leading her deep into the cavern where they had shared their first kiss. "If your theory has any chance of working, this is where it will happen." Nira unpacked her equipment with methodical precision despite her racing heart. She had modified her perception implants to externalize their readings, creating a feedback loop with Talon's energy patterns. "I'm essentially creating a bridge," she explained, attaching sensors to both Talon's chest and her own temples. "My implants will read your energy signature, amplify the harmonic frequencies, and redirect them back into Lumeria's energy grid through you. And if it fails—" His voice was steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. "Then we've lost nothing but time," Nira touched his face gently, "and gained a few more hours together." The equipment hummed to life as Nira initiated the sequence. Immediately, she felt the familiar electric connection to Talon intensify, but now channeled and focused through her modified scientific modifications. The crystal chamber responded, its formations pulsing in synchronization with their shared biorhythms. "It's working!" Talon gasped,
his eyes widening as the luminescent patterns on his skin brightened. I can feel the energy pathways stabilizing. For a moment, hope swelled between them. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Crystals crashed down around them as a massive energy surge overwhelmed Naira's equipment. "The resonance is too weak," she shouted over the rumbling. "The planetary core is too unstable." Talon pulled her close, shielding her from falling debris. He pulled her close, shielding her from falling debris. "There's one thing we haven't tried," he said, his voice strangely calm despite the chaos. "Complete synchronization." Understanding dawned in Naira's eyes. Their most profound connections had always occurred during their most intimate moments, when boundaries between them blurred completely. No words were needed as they shed barriers, both physical and metaphysical. Their kiss deepened as crystal dust swirled around them, their bodies moving together with desperate tenderness. The modified equipment registered their harmonizing biological rhythms, amplifying them through the network of sensors. The chamber's violent shaking gradually shifted into a rhythmic pulsation that matched their shared heartbeats. Through her implants, Naira perceived energy flowing from Lumeria into Talon through their connected bodies and back into the planet's core, a perfect circuit of balance. "Don't let go," Talon whispered against her lips. As light engulfed them, their consciousness expanding into something greater than either had experienced alone. Hours later, they lay exhausted but triumphant amid the now stable crystal formations. The equipment readings confirmed what they both felt. Lumeria's energy grid had re-established equilibrium. The destructive resonance patterns converted to sustainable harmonics. "The planet isn't dying," Naira marveled, studying the data. "It was evolving, and somehow our connection provided the stability it needed to complete the transition." Talon examined the luminescent patterns on his skin, noticing subtle changes. "They're different now, more contained." He placed a hand over his heart, feeling its rhythm. "I'm still connected to Lumeria, but not dependent on it anymore." The implications washed over them both. "You could leave," Naira said softly. "If you wanted to." "Yes." His smile held 15 years of loneliness and 1 month of rediscovered joy, but not alone. As they emerged from the cave into Lumeria's transformed landscape, Naira's communication device activated with the outpost's frantic messages. The evacuation had been postponed. The planet's unexpected stabilization had triggered scientific excitement rather than fear. "They'll want to study you," she warned. "Us. This connection." Talon intertwined his fingers with hers, the glow beneath his skin pulsing in time with her heartbeat. "Let them try to understand it. I'm not sure science has the right vocabulary yet." "Resonance," Naira suggested, "when two frequencies align to create something stronger than either alone." The path back to the outpost stretched before them, but neither felt rushed to return to civilization. They had time now to explore their connection, to study Lumeria's transformation, and to discover what it meant to exist in harmony with forces greater than themselves. As if reading her thoughts, Talon stopped to kiss her beneath the violet sky, his touch carrying the electric reminder of their shared journey from isolation to connection. "For someone who spent 15 years untouched," Naira teased against his lips, "you've become quite good at this." His laughter, full and unrestrained, echoed across Lumeria's plains, a sound the planet had waited 15 years to hear.